Welcome everybody to the first official new Financial Services Audit Compliance Committee meeting.
All righty, we are live.
Welcome again, everybody, for taking the time this afternoon for the first financial meeting. I see we have one action item for renewal to the APTA membership board.
Yes.
And I believe that's what, 26,000?
Somewhere around there. I haven't actually seen the renewal document. Beverly, do you have it in hand? It's between 26 and 27, Dr. O.
That's correct.
Yeah,
It's
I
26.
did an increase, and I believe they're going to be we just recently had the transit board member meeting, and now we definitely have the legislative coming up in March, which will be live.
Can I ask a question, Ms. Cutter?
Yes.
I know I agree with the renewal, but what does that cover for us? Because we pay our own travel expenses, right? It's just a membership fee, or what do we get for the 26,000?
I've asked for a request for that information as to details on what the membership entitles us to. I do know that it provides good information via webinars at this time. And if I'm not mistaken, it also provides staff assistance on various different planning issues and or projects. So it's definitely well worth it. But prior to a board meeting and the vote, I want to be able to give a comprehensive overview of what the advantages are of becoming and renewing this membership. From what I see, it's well worth it.
The other thing it does, Stephanie, is they provide a collective voice for the transit industry. While it's really good that we all have representation in Washington and our state legislatures and so forth, as you know, our own individual interest, the work that they do at the policy and legislative levels for a collective industry that makes it it's a very powerful influencer, I think is one of the most important things they do. Yeah, in addition to the things you named.
Yeah, I agree with that. But my question is more about, you know, if we're paying this $26,000, are we paying administrative costs to the organization to do the kind of things they do for us? That's what it sounds like to me.
I'm sure it helps to support.
Yeah, which makes sense.
Yes, it does.
Kind of like it's like what we spend money on for Mike Becker and for
right.
Patent Briggs to represent us.
Yes.
Plus
and
they
I think,
plan all the seminars. They everything they do is actually available on video and on recording. So we have a constant source of educational material.
Yes.
We just need to use them. We need to use them.
Absolutely.
If we pay the money, we need to use them.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, the other 7 board members will be able to use the
TDM conference that we just had. I think I'm connected on 2 phones. Is that better?
Okay. Yes, much.
Yes.
Okay. Dr. O, do you want me to just go ahead and dive into in accordance with the agenda? Or my thoughts on this is a great opportunity to kind of get a feel for the type of items the board would like to be discussed during this time. We have a lot going on, particularly with a fiscal year 23 budget in front of us. A lot of challenges with that, but I've also included pretty much opening the door to any questions regarding the 22 budget status And then some other things as it relates to audit and compliance monitoring. Of course, the full scope management review. And of course, the board had great concerns about the CRC contract for paratransit services, and stressed the importance of monitoring that. And that is being done. I don't think we'll have any real issues with that. Staff has been really tracking usage very well in spreadsheet format. So when the invoice does come in, we have something to compare to ensure accurate billing. And then another thing I'm really concerned about, that now that Ms. DeMassimo is here, about the long range financial planning and where the board see us going, and under the leadership of the CEO, we really need to begin to think about that and prepare the organization financially. So at this time, I'd like you all's feedback on whether or not this is the type of information you'd like to discuss during the Financial Services Compliant and Audit Committee meeting.
Dr. O, if I may, can I speak? Dr. O, is okay if I speak?
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, one of the things that I was a little bit concerned about, because I'm used to having something to look at before a meeting, and I looked at these items on the agenda, and my question, you, Ms. Cutter, with the FY 2022 budget, are there any specific things that you're concerned about that we should know about? And then as we look at the 2023 budget compared to the 2022 budget,
yes,
and the different things coming down the line, because one of the things I was thinking about was the electric buses.
yes,
And the infrastructure for the electric buses, and what part of that in the 2023 budget.
Okay, well, Dr. O had given some guidance on what he would like shared today, and we can talk about those things. And of course, those things will be forthcoming at the board meeting. But what he asked, Ms. Dumas, do you have that presentation up, please?
Yes, ma'am. I'm pulling it up.
Just a quick point before we go to that. There are 20 or 24. Am I echoing up because I have my phone and this? Wait a minute.
We can hear you,
No,
Dr.
you're
O.
good. You're good.
I'm just not sure what you're hearing me on. I'm going to disconnect the phone part.
I'm going to share my screen.
Can you still hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
I'm still reverbing through the phone, but that's all right. As far as I know, when we did the infrastructure, we set up 20 or 24 charging stations for electric buses in the future. So I don't think, other than the cost of the buses, we're going to actually have any problem. And that's done through grant funding and under the no-low program.
So how much of that is being paid for by Georgia Power? Is Georgia
Well,
Power?
None of it. We bought a substation.
For the new charging stations coming on board, the CAT is working with Georgia Power and will be submitting a grant wherein Georgia Power will cover a major portion of the setup. And the value of that will be used as the local match requirement for any federal dollars that we received. Maintenance staff has been in communications with Georgia Power and are in the process of taking advantage of that opportunity. That is really a great opportunity and really something for CAT to highlight. And it has been suggested that once that's underway, and particularly once granted, an excellent opportunity to show community partnerships in moving public transportation forward, not only the public transportation piece, but also providing opportunities for other governmental entities to use charging stations, and for the private citizen as well. That's a very exciting piece that I think CAT should be very, very pleased with as we move towards that.
And I was thinking, especially for this committee, as we embark on these things and it has an impact on the budget, whether positive or negative, that would be good information to share.
Okay, and that's what I'm seeking to find out what you all want for this meeting. I know this is the first meeting of the new structure, and it may change, but for now, that's good information, Dr. Robinson. So moving forward, I will have something in advance for you all to look at. But there is a brief presentation that I was asked to bring forward for this meeting that we'll go into. And I was asked.
Stephanie, I have a very quick question.
Yes.
Did we not spend like $2 million to put the charging station in on a trailer so we could move it?
Mobile units, yes.
And we paid for the power station that supplied that, didn't we?
Yes, we did.
So if we add another 20 buses, we have absolutely no infrastructure we need to add.
Well, we have the infrastructure that's already grant funded to go to be located at the ITC. And that will be the first project that the Georgia Power grant will help us with. Now, the status of that project, I understand, is sitting on hold. On previous discussions, it was, as I recall, it was placed on hold simply because of concerns about the batteries of the electric bus and whether or not the board wanted to move forward with the procurement of a 6th bus. But I haven't heard any final decisions on that. That was the latest update that I received as I spoke with maintenance staff who's taking the lead on the electric bus project.
Yeah, apparently sometime in November when the buses were delivered,
Yeah.
there was a concern about the cleanliness of the maintenance area where we were doing the repairs and whether or not the batteries were going to be covered to keep dust and other particulate matter out of them.
Well, that was discussion. If I'm not mistaken, the manufacturer didn't have any concerns regarding that. And I believe he did send a report in writing confirming that.
That's correct, Stephanie, and I confirmed that with Gillig since I've been here as well. The canopy that was discussed at one time, there is no need for that expense.
Yeah.
That's good to know.
Yeah,
That is very good.
Yeah,
to know.
that is good to know because we were talking about having to house it, find a,
I know.
Yeah, that's
Well,
good to know.
the amount of time that the board and staff dedicated to researching the value of electric bus was huge. And for the manufacturer not to disclose that at that point, it just appeared to be kind of strange, but they did confirm that that is not a necessity. And they did send something in writing. So we don't have that financial burden to carry forward in 2023.
And we
But
don't think that affect the longevity of the buses?
No,
No,
not,
it shouldn't, from what we were told.
yes.
Okay.
And,
That's
and
good.
our peers with EV buses are not using a canopy situation there. So, I mean, what our practice will be
I don't know.
consistent.
Can
with
anybody
industry
hear me now?
practice.
Yes, we can hear you.
I can hear you.
But I'm
Yeah.
not hearing any of you, and I'm getting an echo. Everything I say is kicking back off my phone. I'm gonna sign out and come back in.
While he's signing back in, I have a quick question and concern. You know, we've received a lot of federal aid money, you know, during COVID. And I'm just wondering how that's going to affect our budget going forward when those monies are no longer coming in.
Good question.
And Ms. Cutter, can I say something too, just as being a part of that APTA meeting? That was a major discussion about transit agency need to start to look at.
That's right. That's
And they're saying these are the conversations we should be having now.
absolutely.
Hope I hear you guys.
Yeah, I think it needs to be, we need to be having
Yeah,
that discussion.
Still not.
As we get more into the budget process, and surely for discussion and workshop, those are the type topics we will be talking about.
Okay.
And I think now is really the time to begin to look at efficient operations. We're going to have to look at the type contracts we are awarding, more reliance on internal staffing versus consultants. We're going to have to look at overall operating efficiencies. I think the easy fix, everybody typically thinks about millage increases and fee increases, but my philosophy is that we need to be as efficient as possible prior to looking at millage increases and raising fees. We need to make sure that we are running efficient transit services. So
yeah, we'll get kickback if we do a millage increase.
I'm in agreement with you. I'm getting ready to prepare the request to the county for paratransit services.
Okay.
And I wanted to talk with you all today about how you felt about that. I didn't think that it would be a good time to ask for a millage increase. I do know that with the new contract negotiations, I will be alerting, of course, after discussion with the CEO, the proposed wage increase of going up to a minimum starting pay of $15 per hour for fiscal year 23. I do believe that the county is open to that because of all of the problems with paratransit services. And they come in at $12.45 an hour. And I think we all can agree that that's just not simply going to work. We're gonna have to do something. So that's a recommendation that I'll be sitting down with the CEO to talk about. And I wanted to get the board's feel on that as well.
One other thing I should mention that we're doing, and Ms. Cutter and I have not had the chance, we're scheduled to meet, but we have not met and gone into these matters deeply yet. But one other thing is we have reached out to the CERTA Greta ATL in Atlanta. They have a deeply experienced staff in bus operations and also in EV operations. And they are going to loan us a peer review group in March that's going to come down and look at what we're doing. This is back to the efficiencies matter that Ms. Cutter just referenced. So we'll be getting some really solid peer recommendations from them around efficiencies and effectiveness kinds of measures that we can bring into our bus operations and paratransit and EV activities. So just wanted you all to be aware of that.
Wonderful.
Ms. Faye and Ms. Stephanie, I have a question about budgetary planning. Do we do a 5-year projection, or we just do a year to year?
Well, right now we are focused only on getting FY 2023 done. The plan is, and my discussions with the CEO will be taking a look at long-range financial planning. I think it's a must. And we really have to get busy on that, but that's going to be based on the direction that is set for the organization. You can't financially plan until you really know and understand the direction of where the organization is going. So once we move beyond and get the FY23 adopted, really focusing in on what does the future look like? Where are we going? What are the financial needs? What are the tools going to be financially to get us there? I think oftentimes we go after grants, but we're going to have to even prioritize that, because with grants, there are local match requirements involved, and we have to have the local support, the local matches. So everything has to be prioritized, and it has to be based upon what the future looks like for the organization. So these are the type of conversations we're going to have.
I want to add one other thing to that. I have had some internal discussion around with our planning group around grants and so forth. And I said, my recommendation to you all was going to be, obviously there's a lot of federal money flowing right now. I think we need to get our house in order first. And I will tell you that the federal agencies and federal organizations appreciate that. So just because there's money there right now, I think we need to get our house in order and do the kind of thoughtful, both strategic business planning and financial planning that Ms. Cutter is referencing. And then when we go after things and we've matched it up to the federal process that we have to do here regionally and locally with putting things into the TIP and STIP and RTP with the MPO and state, those kinds of things will make us much more competitive. We don't just need to be applying for grants and budgeting match just to do it. So I would suggest that we take this next round of grant funding that's about to start rolling out from USDOT, and we just take a minute and we look at what kinds of things are going on. We do our good internal homework first, and then we're ready for the next round as those things come out. The other thing that I think is very helpful is Charles Small, who is Director of Intergovernmental Affairs in the Secretary's Office for Secretary Buttigieg, and Will Raskey, who's his deputy, have now added us to a list every week. I was doing this in my previous position, but every week there will be calls, and they'll make sure that we're in the loop. We'll get to join in with peer cities and peer transit properties and understand what all's out there, what's going on. And we use those opportunities to build our reputation, if you want to call it that, but it's our brand, our reputation, and the notion that we are a reliable partner, that if you engage with us, we will deliver, and we will deliver well. That's a part of what that's all about. And as a matter of fact, they've already sent the first invitation to one of those calls this week. So I'll be participating in those just like I have been in the past. And using that as the opportunity to build confidence in our brand and readying us for the good federal opportunities that we thoughtfully and strategically decide to go after, not just going after things because they're announced.
And Ms. Faye, I can agree with all of what you just said, but the only caveat that I would be concerned about is I wouldn't want us to miss an opportunity.
Yes, sir.
No. And we won't. We wouldn't miss an opportunity, Dr. Robinson. I just want to be sure. I think there's some opportunities that we would be much readier for and we would be successful with them the next round versus this round that's rolling out right now. We've got a lot of work to do just to get our house really solid.
Yes.
And Dr. Robinson, just to add to that, receiving grants and allowing the grants to sit with no activity, that could really hurt us in the long run. If the federal government has to take that money back and reallocate it, and as we come forward with new grant application, that shows up on our record, and that's not really good. So we're going to have to make sure once we apply for a grant and receive it, that we are ready to move on it. So getting prepared for that, I agree with the CEO on that. Preparation is, we have to be ready to move.
And the operative word for me
that
is strategically. I agree.
Yes, absolutely.
I think we should.
Yes.
Again, my concern is as we strategically do these things that we know need to be done. If
Yes.
opportunities present themselves, there's something that we are ready for. I don't mean apply for a grant, let it sit.
Right.
I want us to be ready for that grant.
That's right.
And apply for it.
Yes,
I
ma'am.
want to be very sure too that this review that we are about to receive the results of from Federal Transit Administration, the management overview review that was done, that we really that we get that behind us, and if there's anything there that we need to improve upon or whatever, those are the kinds of things we've got to do also in order to be able to compete successfully for grant opportunities. So I know that that's coming back to us from FTA very soon, and we'll have opportunities there as well to improve. So
yes, absolutely. But this is what the budget comparison looks like over the last 5 years. As you can see, a slight dip in 21, expected. Operating expenses were slightly down. Of course, we received CARES Act funding and CRISA funding in 2021. Which helped us significantly. Program revenues were down, agency revenues were down. So that federal funding really kept us afloat. The projection for 2022 is going to be left at budget, simply because a lot of costs haven't been hit. Vacancies, we are showing significant savings. Page 2, please.
Ms. Cutter,
Yes.
Chairman O'Halloran was trying to speak. Can we back up a little bit? Okay.
Yes.
Chairman O'Halloran, we apologize for that. The floor is yours.
We can't hear him.
Okay.
I'm still getting reverb.
Can you hear Director
Not
O'Halloran? Say something again, Director O'Halloran.
Yeah, can anybody hear me?
Yes.
Now we can.
Oh, good. Now we're 40 minutes in and I've been waiting to talk and nothing's happened. So just continue. I'll just catch up on my own.
Okay, but as I said, this is what the comparison looks like. The next slide, please. And this is what the actual comparison looks like. It's similar to the budget with the slight dip in 2020. The 22 has been projected as at budget. If the board members recall, there was, a nice little gap, revenues over expenditures, but we're going to begin to see that gap closed as we hire and fill positions. We've had several significant payouts with people exiting the organization. So those expenses are going to begin to show up, and that gap will close up. Okay, the next, Ms. Dumas. And this slide just compares budget versus actual. As you can see, the actual in compared to budget has been less across the years. The variances are displayed in red. So you can actually see what that looks like. In 2021, as you can see, the variance, it was actual compared to budget was pretty much on target. And for 22, at this point, we're projecting actual at budget. Any questions on any of that?
Can anybody hear me?
Yes, sir.
I had Stephanie prepare this, but I realized when I did it, we didn't take out the CARES, Carissa, and the 5307 funds. So these numbers are really unrealistic. And until we get the TDP, the TIP, the strategic, not strategic, the strategic plan built out for another 5 years. It ended in 2022.
Yes.
So unfortunately, we don't have any of that information yet. The committees really haven't been doing anything for 5 months. So we're really going to have to think forward. I heard you mentioned that we weren't going to ask for an increase in the millage, and I don't see how going forward we can do that.
I would recommend it for 23 simply because the county is also struggling. Everyone is facing the same challenges, and we, of course, these numbers reflect CARES Act, CRISA funds that we're receiving to support us and with operations even in fiscal year 23. We have been successful in building a little reserve in which we have not had in the past. We have not had to rely on the line of credit. I personally don't think asking for a millage increase in 2023 will fly. Ms. Stone can give us some feedback on that.
I agree with you. I don't think it's going to fly. I don't think the board will approve it. I just don't.
Yeah.
Well, then we're going to have to consider cutting service, because when you take out the 5307 funds, we've been in the hole for the last 4 years.
Well,
and because of that, we're losing. That's capital money we're throwing out the window for improvements that we need to make to the facilities, including a potential move of the entire paratransit fleet out of Gwinnett because there isn't enough parking or enough spaces.
Well, we do have a vision to address that, Dr. O. We have had some preliminary discussion with the county about some property that they own and are willing to consider donating for a paratransit facility. So there are some collaborative efforts and discussions underway to help with that. And we do have, hopefully, the ARP money for the next 4 years will soon be approved, where we can count on that. And from what I'm seeing now, I think we can safely make it through fiscal year 23, coupled with more efficient operations, better planning. I think we'll get through 23 okay without a millage increase.
I hope so. I don't see where that's going to happen, but when we see the numbers at the budget retreat, we'll be able to see better. But
Yeah,
I think we need to plan on getting the 5307 funds, which are capital funds that we're using for operating. And it's not allowing us to do capital projects unless we get grant funding. And that's a major problem. That's $3.3 million a year.
well, you remember now, there was an amendment that was approved back in March of last year to swap some of that 5307 money with CRISA money. And that was a one-time thing. At that time, that was, I would say it was a good idea because the organization was struggling meeting the financial operating, just fulfilling that. So I don't think we'll do that again because the emergency relief funding that we have and the ability for us to put some money aside, I think that's really going to help us.
Well, I'd like to see that on paper before I'm gonna, because I was in on the entire budget process last year.
Yeah.
And we've been running behind since Chad Reese was our CEO, because he's the one who brought the 5307 funds in.
Well, I think we had in maybe the last 2 fiscal years, a lot of unbudgeted things to hit the budget that really threw some things off. But we are really trying to do better and safeguard against that, Dr. O'Halloran. I share your sentiments. And as we move further into discussions regarding budget and you actually see the numbers, hopefully you'll feel a little better.
And I also
looking at these, 18 is probably the only legitimate year because 19, 20, and 21 were all COVID years.
Yeah.
So all those deficits were covered by CRISA and by the CARES Act.
That is correct.
Until we figure out where we're going to be going in the future, and we don't even have a strategic plan to work on yet.
I think you missed that part of the conversation earlier, Dr. O, but that's exactly what we were speaking of.
No, that's what I mean. We ended it last time it was discussed in 2022. There was very little put out past that date, which means we need to do a 5 and 10 year plan so we can go ahead and come up with some ideas and see how we're going to finance them.
Yes.
Plus, I think the question about advanced budgeting only requires us to come out with a yearly budget for the county and the state. We can do it as a theoretical exercise, but until it's actually like forced to be put out by June 30th, there's not a heck of a lot we can do.
Right.
One thing I would mention related to all that, I completely agree that our lack of a strategic plan is a real need for us. I know that we've had an RFP out for a comprehensive operational analysis and a transit development plan, but those are still relatively short-term kinds of tools, and we need a master transit plan that offers the strategy and all those other components and puts us in the position that we were talking about earlier around the kinds of coordination we need to be able to do at the regional and state level to align our own investments and needs with opportunities there, and ensure our federal eligibility for certain kinds of funds. So that's something that I'm really focused on and working with the staff here already to ensure that we get that moving quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I know that the TIP and TDP are only short-term, only 3 and 5 year plans. They're not long-term either, and we have to extend on that. Did we ever get back the RFP to get someone to come in and do that, since we seem to be short of people to do it?
we've got responses back on doing the COA and TDP as a joint thing. I've got some comments on it that I think that we need to talk a little bit about. I'm going to be talking to staff about those this week. I've offered some questions on that that I hope we can address. And then I think it's only going to be useful if we also integrate it with a master plan, a strategic plan. You can't just rely upon these kinds of things, although they're, important tools as well. But we're working on all of that, and we'll be reporting out on that to you regularly over the coming weeks.
Okay, yeah, I know we brought you into a bit of a mess. And I have one simple question. What do we refer to you as? Miss Damaso? Mrs. Damaso? I'm not sure.
You are perfectly fine to call me Faye, I think.
Well, I mean, in a proper setting, I think that's a little casual.
Just Miss DeMassimo is fine. Whatever, it's DeMassimo, and however you typically do that, if you call your CEO here, CEO DeMassimo, if you call them Director DeMassimo, I don't know what's been your normal standard for referencing your CEO and your general manager. So whatever term you'd like to apply to with the DeMassimo is perfect. Okay,
I just wanted to make sure because they don't want to say, hey, you. And first names in an open meeting is a little informal at times.
Completely agree with you. Understand that completely. DeMassimo is a mouthful. And so I have no problem with, people calling me Faye in a more, as you put it, in a more casual setting. But no, I don't know what has been your practice in the past, but if it's Director DeMassimo or CEO DeMassimo or Manager DeMassimo, any of those things is perfectly fine.
Okay. Like I said, I just feel awkward not knowing what to call somebody.
Dr. O'Halloran, if I may, I want to add something to the earlier discussion. And what I want to say to Ms. Stephanie and Ms. Faye is that I trust the process. I trust the staff in keeping us informed. And I think through this committee structure, with the with what we're tasked with doing, I think collectively we can get us through any challenge that we have faced or have yet to face.
Dr. Robinson, those are great words, and I know that Ms. Cutter and I both, as well as all the staff here, are very grateful and proud to hear that. One of the other things that I'm going to be doing too is, just because I'm a huge, big believer in communication. Communication is it's the essential ingredient in every successful organization that I've ever worked with. And so one of the things I'm going to be doing, just a little thing, that every Friday you're going to start getting an email from me as a board that's just called Weekly Snapshot. And it's just going to be the things that were happening that week and the things that are going to be coming up the next week, just so you feel like you're not just waiting on a committee meeting or your board meeting, but you're kind of hearing what's happening. What are the noteworthy things, the snapshot things in a week and for an upcoming week on a weekly basis.
Yeah, I love that idea. It does help.
And I also think with the committee structure, I think we can for lack of a better word, Ms. Cutter, is to alert you and Ms. Faye about the question we may be asking at the open board meeting.
Yes,
absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes. Yes.
I know we cut off. I'm not sure where we are. Did you want to go through the rest of what's on here?
Well, we kind of touched upon, the full scope management review. And I personally think it's a wonderful exercise because it really measures where we are, the areas that we need improvement in, and also it will highlight the areas where we've been pretty good. So it's really nothing to be anxious about, but it's just a wonderful opportunity and a strategy to use as we move forward. I listed on the outline some of the compliance monitoring efforts that are on the horizon, the CRC contract, I know the board expressed concerns about the prior monitoring of that. So we have that in the forefront. We also, we are going to take a look at paratransit and how well we're doing in terms of compliance with that, because we have to report to the county as well as the federal government. And it's just a good thing to do to make sure we're operating safely, our staff is properly trained, and all of that. We have the security contract coming up for award. Of course, that's a very important piece, securing our facilities. And then something that I don't think a lot of attention has been given to, and that's our Dbe Outreach. Have encouraged staff to reach out to community partners, city, county, school board, state, federal government, to take advantage of some of those arrangements they already have in place so that our goals are met as it relates to DBE participation. And then, as mentioned before, a critical piece is the long-range financial planning. And that cannot be done until it's decided where this organization is going. And the financial plan, of course, has to be connected at the hip with where Chatham Area Transit is going.
Right. A lot of that's going to depend on expansion countywide. I
Yes, sir.
understand Pooler is putting it on the referendum, and the way it's supposedly written, it's just going to be knocked down. They're never going to go for it because their millage rate is like 3.9 right now, and be adding the 1.15, they don't think it has a chance of passing. So I don't see any immediate expansion of the service outside of where we are now. And we have the MPO coming up. Ms. Fay, I know that you and Dietrich will be part of that board. You do have 2 votes on the MPO.
Yes.
And that keeps us involved with where our money is. And the MPC, I think we also need to represent that, because they're telling, or should be telling us, where they're building stuff so we can figure out if we can service it before it gets promised.
We do have someone from the planning group that's attending the MPC meetings as well.
Okay, I didn't know how many of them. I know you're just stepping in the door, and I don't want to overwhelm you.
But it's too late.
I know. You look like you're holding up okay, even after your trip to Atlanta.
Ms. Fay, when we talk about creating the strategic plan,
Yes, ma'am.
where is that on your list of things to do, and how are we going to do it?
It's our highest priority item. I'm going to find out what one of the things it's on my list of things to discuss with Ms. Cutter when we meet. I believe it's tomorrow. I want to find out where we are. Those are the kinds of things that you typically would do with FTA funds, grant type funds and so forth, to help you develop a master transit plan. So once I get an understanding of where our opportunities are to fund it, or if we don't have one, where I can go create one, then we'll come back to this board and we'll get a scope pulled together, and we'll get authorization to put it out on the street, and we'll get that started. I mean, it's a highest priority item, because I'm already concerned, honestly, that we've got the COA and the TDP going, but we don't have a home for all this. And so it's really like, what are we aiming for? I think it's the question that Ms. Cutter's asking over and over in this conversation is, it's all well and good to talk about all this stuff, but if we don't really understand what we're aiming for, we're just doing things. We're not running a service, and we've got to get to that. It's a more business mindset to this.
So, and I guess what my question really is, because earlier, are we doing it ourselves? Are we gonna contract it out? Are we gonna get help in doing it, or?
I think we might need some of both. I will tell you that typically in these transit master plans, there's some level of transit modeling and travel demand modeling that is an area of expertise that most transit properties just don't keep on staff, right? But it's very important to be able to do that, because showing that the work that you did that justifies or explains particular kinds of investments was done in full compliance with all the FTA requirements is what qualifies it for funding. So I think that we ought to think of it as a partnership where we're very much in the lead and we are directing and we're managing and all those kinds of things, but we bring in a team of folks to work with us to help with some of the pieces that we just don't have the staff, or we don't have the particular expertise, or it's something that we wouldn't have as an expertise routinely anyway, to be able to do that. Because our staffing situation right now, you know, we've got to work on the staffing situation as well right now. And the reorganization that's already, I started on the reorganization as soon as I hit the ground here, looking at how are we organized and how does that kind of organizational structure lend itself to performance outcomes in the things that we do, fixed route service, demand response service, ensuring the safety of what we do, the planning of what we do, and so forth. And I'm also looking at peers that are in our market. So, you know, we're not a MARTA, but we're also not a small property either. We're a mid-range market. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, I had the benefit of Dr. Robinson of being able to work coming from Nashville. The transit property in Nashville is widely considered one of the best run in the country. And they're a mid-sized market, you know, transit property. And they do a lot of things that we can sort of borrow from and think about and figure out how do we take those things and make them work in Savannah, because we're unique as well. And so we will have a reorganizational structure to introduce to the board and the organization. I would say probably by the end of the 30 days evaluation that I'm already in with existing staff and positions and so forth.
Well, given that we're into 2022, looking at 2023 budget, mm-hmm. these things that have to be done, and you don't have to answer this right now, we need to consider the budget impact. It Absolutely. Might be, but it might be positive. But anyway, my concern is we need to look at it from a financial perspective as well, because mm-hmm. you know, the budget is what it is, and we're already talking about, you know, trying to making sure we got enough money to do what we got to do. So.
Absolutely. And to your point earlier, you know, we want to be sure that we are finding those great partnership opportunities, and we are using our dollars to leverage other dollars so that we make our dollars go further. And that's going to be just a practice that it will become routine for us as we move forward. So, and not just the one-time funds, but other kinds of partnership arrangements that can help us to continue to grow and so forth. So,
and my last question, I think it's my last question, but anyway, the other item, the Dbe Outreach and participation would probably be all a part of that strategic plan. Mm-hmm. I'm sure, but during the after conference, they talked about the racial equity community and piloting it. Do you think that's something that we'd be interested in being a part of? Because I think it ends on March 31st.
I do. And I think, equity is a top of mind. It's a top of mind policy for every transit system and frankly, every DOT in the country right now. Because it's all about what is equity really? Equity is really about how do you get people, all people, to the places they need and want to go. And that's what a good equity system does. And I think that, I think that that's something that we're interested in, something I have experience in. And so we can work on that. Now, I was thinking too, back to the DBE, I wasn't going to necessarily talk about that today, but you know, one of the things that we can also do in addition to, and I believe Ms. Cutter brought this up, you know, is we can partner with state partners that already have pre-qualified, certified DBEs, but we can also host our own sort of fairs here about our upcoming opportunities. And if there's somebody that's not yet qualified, we can make sure that whether that's Federal Transit Administration or GDOT, which GDOT typically does this on behalf of FTA and Federal Highway, is that we have them set up with us for some kind of a fair around upcoming procurement opportunities. And if somebody's not qualified, well, there's the table. Go right over there and get yourself qualified so you can begin to participate, not just on our opportunities, but in others, right? So there's the good news out of all this is it sounds like there's a lot to do, but that's the great news is there's a lot to do. I don't see anywhere from here but continuing to improve and succeed. There's just nowhere else. There's no other direction for us but upward. So,
and it appears that the racial equity is a universal concern. And I think by APTA putting together these pilot committees, that they're actually willing to train, and then use the data collected from those pilots to have effective programming. And I was wondering would that just be another thing on our plate, or that's something we'd be interested in being a part of that pilot?
No, I think we could be a part. We need to find out the particulars of their pilots. They may already have them selected, but we could still find a way to be a peer somehow. Maybe it's a peer reviewer or somehow to one of those pilots to be able to learn from it if they haven't already selected.
I don't think so. It closes, I think they said March 31st. I don't think so. I think they said it closes March 31st.
I'll check on that then and let you know.
And if board members can be a part of it, I'd like to assist in any way that I can.
Of course. Thank you very much for bringing that suggestion forward.
And actually, APTA only had diversity and inclusion 2 years ago. So the equity part has been recently added.
Right.
That was not in their original, because I went to the D&I meeting when I was last there. And I just wanted to bring up another point, talking about budgeting in the contract for paratransit, the raises to $14.25 an hour from the $12.45 that we're currently offering, and that's actually below national average.
Yeah.
And the city of Savannah went to $15 an hour, which I assume the county will have to as well.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And the competition is great. I mean, we've got to be able to, pay, because there's a whole bunch of competition out there for drivers.
Mm-hmm.
One other thing I wanted to quickly mention that just came to mind while we got this committee together is as a part of this master transit plan, the strategic plan, one of the most useful things, and we did this, I've done this in 2 previous engagements or programs that I've led, is as a part of that master transit plan is we also, and this is some place where we do have somebody external help us, is that there's a component of this that's called innovative funding strategies, innovative financial strategies. And to give you an example of how productive it can be, just to show you what a real-time result. So we did this on the Nashville transportation plan. The assessment was that out of 300 and something different kinds of funding opportunities at federal, state, local, public-private partnerships and the like, out of all those opportunities, there were 72 that would work under Tennessee state law and under Metro Code that would still be available to us. And then they further took those and helped us match those to the projects that we were seeking to advance. Well, so in a 4-year period, Nashville had been able to attract about $20 million in implementation dollars they wouldn't otherwise have gotten, that weren't like apportionment dollars or that kind of thing. In 2 years, following through with those strategies that we developed as a part of that master plan, we brought in $44 million in 2 years versus $20 million in 4. So over twice as much money. That's a worthy investment. And I think, I don't remember, how much that part of the consultant fee was for helping us with that, but it was nowhere near, it was, it was, I think it was maybe like $50,000 or something like that. You can see that kind of people with that kind of understanding and expertise of the whole lay of the land think about how productive that could be for us. And that kind of an element needs to be a part of this master plan we're going to do.
Yes.
So then it becomes our roadmap, if you will, our transit route, if you will,
Right.
of how to get to the places that we want to, the things we want to accomplish and where we want to go.
Instead of from year to
You
year,
had a
we
chance.
have a long range plan.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Have you had a chance to talk with Jack Kingston yet?
Yeah.
We are set. We've got a meeting set up with his group, and I don't remember. I saw it on the calendar earlier today, and I apologize. I don't remember that one right.
Oh, that's all right. As long as, I know you met with Vacker up in Atlanta, and I assume you're going up to DC for the APTA conference.
Yes. The
Okay.
one in March. Yes.
Yeah, Jack will actually take in all the offices. You may not meet the actual people, but we know we got two on our side and us off in Warnock as far as transportation.
Right.
So, and we've had discussions with them in the past already, so that's a good sign.
Yeah, Jack will be in town the end of next week.
I think that's when they're scheduling it then. I think
Probably,
that's
yeah.
correct.
Yes, ma'am. He'll be here Friday morning to meet with Mr.
Right.
Massimo.
Excellent, excellent. As far as reporting items, Stephanie, do you think there's anything we missed?
Well, we talked about a lot.
Yeah.
I think we covered it comprehensively. So,
Okay, I can't think of any like drastically new ones.
okay.
But I know you close out the month at the 30th. Maybe the finance committee could see the end of month if we can have it by the second Tuesday.
Yes,
Rather
we'll,
than have to think about it all the way to the board meeting and not really have
Yes.
anything to react to.
yes, I jotted that down. We're gonna,
Dr. Halloran, and Director Stone, this is for the three of us. My question more about how do what we do here connect with the other committees? Do we give them information? Or we get information from them to help us when we meet? How does that work in this new structure?
Wouldn't you have a committee report out at the regular
Right.
board meeting? Every committee would have a committee report out so that everybody hears a summary of what all your rich discussion is in these meetings.
That's right.
That's my question.
Yeah,
Mhm.
Miss Adams usually has those minutes out like a week after we meet for review by all board members.
Because I guess my thinking was around if there were questions that the other committees needed to come to finance, would they filter those through us and vice
No,
versa?
I would think through governance.
Through governance? Okay.
Yeah, you have all three committee chairs and the vice chair and chairman there, which
Okay.
is more than half the board. Actually.
Okay. Okay.
And that's used to set the agenda for the following board meeting.
So, I just
I
sometimes
don't have any
information.
old business since it's our first meeting. And
Yeah,
probably no other committee business for now, unless someone has a specific report they'd like to see at these meetings. I think Stephanie's got a pretty good list.
Yeah. I would not mind seeing where we are monthly, as far as if that's too often, just seeing where we are financially coming and going out of 2022, going into 2023, just to get maybe a summary of how things are looking. And if things are going down, we need to know about it in advance.
absolutely,
So
absolutely,
as much transparency as we can get
Yes.
for this committee, I think it'd be helpful.
absolutely.
And that would apply to the capital budget items as well.
Yes, sir.
So we can, even though we don't have any direct ability to control those, we just get to see what's coming and going.
Okay.
Questions from anybody else? And Faye, it was good seeing you here with us to get some conversational time.
Absolutely. I'm just really proud and excited to be here. So
And we're
Thank
glad
you.
to have you.
Thank you.
And Dr.
Amanda.
Halloran,
Yes.
I'm interested in going to the legislative meeting in March. So do I run that through Beverly or?
We actually cut out all board travel from last year's budget, and particularly that one because I found it to be the least useful.
But this one with the legislative was what's going on after that APTA meeting that we had, the legislative session, being able.
They really don't tell you anything. They bring in people from the two transit Senate and House transit chairmen, and they won't confirm anything. They just give out some vague ideas, and then you go traipse around the Capitol for half a day.
So because of the interest that I do have, do I run that through the board chair or?
You can ask the board chair, but all that travel was eliminated from the budget because APTA wasn't planning on doing any live events. And this one,
right,
you really can't do, but you don't get to meet with the senators or the congressmen. They're never in session when we go up.
That's right.
Which is why I kind of kicked it off the list. Plus, it's expensive for little or no information.
One other thing I would mention to this group that we're now doing regularly is there are a series of briefings that come out on all kinds of different topics from the secretary's office. We are now on a list of transit systems and cities that have been we got added to the list this week. I used to do this with them. This is with the secretary's office. And it's all kinds of things from opportunities to upcoming legislation to just all kinds of things, all kinds of helpful and useful information. But there's a gentleman, his name is Charles Small. He's Director of Intergovernmental Affairs for Buttigieg, and then Will Rasky, who's his deputy, and they've now added us. So we've already started scheduling every time they do one of those calls. It's only usually 30 minutes or an hour, but they're chocked full of information and virtual. So cheap to participate. And so just know that we are now dialed into those, and as helpful, useful information comes out of those, I'll be pushing that out to you all as well.
Thank you.
And you might want to have Beverly set you up with a meeting with Buddy Carter when he's back in his office there in Savannah.
Okay.
I'm not sure when he'll be back, but he has an office on Abercorn near Duran.
Beverly, there's another meeting.
Yes, ma'am.
Believe me, Faye, without Beverly, you'd never remember them all.
One other
You just
thing
have to call me.
I don't know if this group is particularly interested, but I did want to mention to you one other thing I'm doing. We're talking about all these meetings and getting out and talking to folks and so forth. And so I'm doing a lot of that local kind of stuff too. But one of the things that I'm starting to set up, and Beverly and I are working on it today, is to do some meet the CEO meetings out in the field. So like our top 10 bus stops where, the highest ridership, I'm just going to show up at some of those places, just talk to people who are riding our system and talk about their experiences and so forth, in addition to all of the other kinds of things you would think we would be doing on that. Also have some times when if the bus drivers are coming in from their routes and they just want to sit down, just have some times that are designated for that, meet the CEO kind of stuff. We're going to be doing that coming up as well. And that'll be an ongoing thing. But I just wanted you guys to be aware of that also.
Yeah,
And Faye, if you want to go to any of my neighborhood association meetings and just do a brief introduction and then, answer any questions and leave, just let me know and I can set those up.
Perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome.
You got the Downtown Business Association, which meets like every 2 months.
I got roped into Rotary already too.
There'll be more.
All right, folks. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody. And I'm going to adjourn the meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks again, everyone.
Mhm.